Hello and happy Thursday, everyone. We are in the season of fall, and this is the time of harvesting the last bounty before winter. And one of the very common fruits that people harvest on the west coast are jalapenos. Any kind of chili grows really well here, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways of preserving a bountiful harvest. Now, because our garden went in late this year, we've been buying our jalapenos from a local producer, and they've been really good this year, and they've been very inexpensive, so we decided to put away a lot of them for the winter, because jalapenos are everybody's favorite. The kids love them. Most of the kids love them. And so we're going to ferment jalapenos today. When you are fermenting, just like when you're preserving in any other way, when you're drying, fermenting, just canning, you always want to look for the best fruit. Because if the fruit is at all rotten, it's not going to preserve well. So you want to get a nice, clean fruit that's firm and is just healthy. This one has a little scar on it, but scars don't hurt as long as it's a nice, firm, solid piece of fruit. So when you are doing your jalapenos for fermenting, I prefer to have them sliced. You can do them whole, but they take much longer, and there is a lot more chance for rot instead of fermentation to happen because of the air pocket inside the pepper. So I like to slice them in about 1/4 inch slices, because those go well if people want to have them on their beans or rice. They can just throw them on like that, or I can put them in chili. I can do anything with that size slices. So once you get them sliced up really well, you're going to want to put them in, well, I use a mason jar. There are lots of different vessels for fermenting. A lot of people use German fermentation crocks. A lot of people use just glass jars that they cover with cloth. I use actual mason jars. You're going to want to put your jalapenos into the jar. A little word on safety first. I forgot to mention this. You'll notice I'm doing this with bare hands. Most people will want to do this with gloves. I actually have nerve damage in my hands, so I don't like to handle a knife with gloves on because it's dangerous. But most people will want to use gloves to cut anything jalapeno or hotter, because it will stay on your fingers, and if you touch your eyes or your mouth, you can get it in there and it'll hurt a lot. So for future, or for reference, most people want to do this with gloves. But you take your jalapenos and you put them in your fermentation vessel. These are 1/2 gallon jars. I find that these are perfect for us because with a family of 6, 5 of whom like jalapenos, we go through a lot. And we've put by, what, love, already about 6 1/2 gallon jars?
6, I think.
6. So it takes about 2 weeks to go through a 1/2 gallon of jalapenos in our family. But so when you get your jalapenos to between 1/3 and 1/2 of the jar, you're going to want to start adding your salt. I only use sea salt because there are trace minerals in it. It's better for you. They don't mine it from salt mines. And I do mine by sight, but when you're first starting to do this, you're probably going to want to use 1.5 teaspoons for a 1/2 gallon jar. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to spread the salt all across the top of those chilies. And then you chop more and put more in until you'll stop in another 1/3 of the way and put more salt, and then another 1/3 of the way. So it's a 1/2 teaspoon per time you fill. Then when you get done, you're going to want to put the top on your fermentation vessel. And you're going to want to let them sit for a little while. This one's been sitting for probably 1/2 hour. And if you look really close, you can see that the moisture is starting to render out of the jalapenos. That's really important, because that is the starting of the liquid that you're going to want your jalapenos to set in. Once this is set for a few hours, you should have between 1 inch to 2 inches of liquid just from the jalapenos in there. And that's when you're going to want to fill it the rest of the way, probably about 1 inch away from the bottom of the lid, because you don't want any metal to come in contact with it, because it will be reactive and it will cause rust and it will cause all kinds of problems with your chilies. So you will fill it to within 1 inch of the lid and make sure that all of the jalapenos are below the surface of the liquid. Now that water needs to be filtered because chlorine will interfere with the fermentation process. At this point, you're going to just let it sit on your counter. Between 3 and 5 days is about how long it takes for jalapenos to be where I like them. Some people like them a little bit further in their fermentation process. Some people like them a little bit less. I would not advise eating them less than 3 days in their fermentation process. During this process, if you notice a white film across the top, you're going to need to take the lid off and you're going to need to skim that white film across the top off. And any fruit that has the white film on it needs to be removed from there and thrown away. But you will notice this is a fully fermented jar. We've actually had this one in the refrigerator for a couple days. You'll notice a change in color. It almost looks as though they've been cooked. And that is because of the fermentation process. At this point, there is no bad smell at all. It actually has a sweet, sour kind of smell. And they are completely edible and very yummy, and they taste a lot like what you would buy in the store, in the jarred jalapenos. At this point, you can decide whether you want to can them or whether you want to just keep them in your refrigerator. If you have a huge bounty, you're probably going to want to can them. And that's what we've done with a lot of ours. But that is jalapeno fermentation for putting by the bounty from the winter. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next time.